something incredible. Amen. When you look at our gospel text, which Rob had just read for us, and I'd love for you to eyeball this. This is something I had never noticed before. Now, I've been a pastor for 18 years. I've been a Christian, a Lutheran Christian, for over 45 years. That's a long time. How many of you aren't even 45 years old? Right? Whew, I'm getting that old. That's why I've got so many little wisdom sprouts popping up. But when you look at page 5 of your bulletin, I just want to refresh it because I want to make sure that we heard what was going on. On one occasion, the crowd was pressing in on Jesus to hear the word of God, and he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret. And he saw 2 boats by the lake, but the fishermen gone out of them and were washing their nets. So fishermen back then worked the night shift. They would fish all night. And then early in the morning, they'd take the fish to go to market if they caught any, and then they would come back and then they'd fix their nets because they wanted the fish to be fresh. And they wanted to make sure that those nets were taken care of because, you're throwing these in the water and lots of fish are trying to get out. So, there's going to be little tears, there's going to be little nicks, there's going to be little tiny snags, and then the nets just need to be repaired. And so they were already putting their stuff away. This would be like coming into the cafe downstairs at 6:35 at night saying, "Can I get a large mocha latte?" Everything shut down, right? Everything is shut down. Everything is good. This would be like going into Costco, which closed. I found out last night at movie night. This would be like going into Costco at 5:45. They close at 6. This would be like going in at 5:45 and saying, "Hey, we have a movie night. Can I have 4 large pizzas?" They weren't excited to see me because they were ready to start power washing the grease, healthy grease, of course, because it was a church event. They were trying to power wash off the oven and clear off the grease on the cases. They were ready to tuck in. And these guys have been working all night, and we hear, if you remember when we were reading this earlier, they had been working all night for nothing, so they're fixing their nets for nothing. They are exhausted. Have you ever had a day when you were really busy but didn't feel like you got anything done? Right? Beth, you're chuckling. You and I both, right? Everybody else can empathize. So they were done. They were done. Someone is walking in at 6:30 p.m. at Costco, and the person at the deli is like, "How in the world did you even get in here? We should have locked the doors. What are you doing? Go away." They were very nice. We got our pizzas, and they were delicious. So that's what's happening. So verse 3, Jesus gets into one of the boats. They had docked it. They were like at the end of a 12-hour shift of a hard job of not even getting anything done, and they are exhausted. And Jesus gets into one of their boats, and it's Simon Peter's, and he asks him to put out a little from land. This is like hour 13 of the shift, and they didn't get overtime because they didn't even get fish. And so here the stranger walks up at the end of his shift and says, "Could I borrow you for a few hours?" Because back then, sermons would be hours long. Weren't the good old days good? Settle in for a nice 2-hour sermon. Wouldn't that be great? All right. So he gets in the boat, and Simon hears and says, "Hey, put me out from land." And so he sat down and he taught the people from the boat. The reason why he's teaching from the boat, now this I already knew. There's something I did not know about this text I had not noticed before. But he's out in the boat because if you're paralyzed, if you have leprosy, if you're blind, if you're deaf, if you're demon-possessed, you're not going to swim out in 80-foot deep water to climb into a boat when a guy has clearly said, "Hey, let me do some talking." He sets out in the boat because when he wasn't out in a boat or, like up on a hillside or a mountain or something, people would just come up and interrupt him. He could be in the middle of a sermon. One time, he is in the middle of a sermon and somebody walks up and goes, "I got a question, over here. Oh, whoop, whoop, hey." Everybody, the thousands that were there to hear Jesus talk, they're all put on pause. "Teacher, would you please tell my brother to stop being such a jerk and divide the inheritance evenly with me?" Now, the law, fair or not, back in that time was the firstborn gets double portion. Everybody else gets an even portion, right? They get a double portion. Everybody else splits it up evenly. So he's actually saying, "Jesus, I know the rules, but, you're something new. Make it a little squishy. Can we go ahead and just go 50-50? Is that a question that could wait to the end? Is that a question that could wait to the greeting line? Yeah. So Jesus sets out because he's there to do something very significant. And it's not just to put Band-Aids on our boo-boos. he would do that, but he had something more important to do. Now, we don't hear this sermon because it's probably like a lot of the other sermons that Jesus had preached. And so the important teachings that he taught, we get in other places because that's not the emphasis here. So he's teaching from the boat. When he finishes, he says to Simon, you know those nets that you just washed? You know those nets that you just cleaned? You know those nets that you just finished fixing? I want you to kick up that pizza fryer and make me another 18-inch pepperoni pizza. Can you think of a time when you were imposed upon like that? You know, you're about to sit down for dinner, and then work calls, and it's like, hey, that last meeting was so fun. Let's have another meeting right now. You know what's better than a meeting? A pre-meeting, which allows you to get more meeting for your meeting. Huh? And that's what's happening right here. But this is after like a 12-hour shift of getting nothing. So he says, hey, let out your nets. And so then Peter goes, hey, look, Master, we toiled all night and took nothing. Now, I am a professional fisherman, and I know you really only go fishing for fish with nets like this in this river, or I'm sorry, in this lake, which I have been fishing for my entire life, and probably my dad before me and his dad before him. And we all know you don't go fishing during the day, but Master, if you really want me to have to kick up the pizza fryer and make that one pizza and then take it all back down, fine. So he does. And when they had done this, right, look at verse 6. When they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, that their nets were what? Breaking. Does Peter complain? Oh, we just stitched that net back together. We just fixed that net. Does he complain about that? Because that's the point of the nets, right? I mean, talk about payday. If you're a fisherman, you want so many fish that you're hearing bing, bing, bing. You don't want to hear bing, 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 bing. You don't want to hear that, but you want to hear bing, bing. Because it's like, oh, we hit the payload. We've been doing it wrong our entire life. We just needed to have Jesus in the boat. And so their nets are breaking. Verse 7, and they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both the boats so that both boats began to what? They made it. They made bank. They had more fish than they had ever had before, because if this was normal, they would have had bigger boats. They wouldn't have been in a panic, and Peter would not have quit in the middle of payday and said, you're God, aren't you? Like, this is a God thing. Now, something that I had never noticed about this text before is when Jesus says, follow me, Peter and Andrew and James and John all say yes. And they follow him. If I were in that boat, I'm a negotiator. I would say something like, oh, Jesus, I get to follow you? Yeah. What an amazing beginning to the ministry that we're going to do together, for us to take these thousands of fish to market, and then we will have tens of thousands of dollars, and then we could go into full-time ministry, Jesus. I mean, man, the only thing that can make this story better, Jesus, is if we count all these fish. If we count all these fish, and then we count all the money that we got, and it's going to 100% go to the kingdom, Jesus. But man, and could you imagine how much you could sell those fish for? Not only did you get all the fish, right? But you could go to the fish sellers and say, hey, you know how thousands of people got up early to hear Jesus preach? Yeah. And did you hear about that catch? Oh, yeah, I did. I'm that Peter, and these are those fish. How much do you think people are going to pay for the Jesus fish, right? These fish didn't come out of that water. These fish came out of the miracle of God. I'm pretty sure that you will be 10% holier if you have a Jesus fish. So, although normally it'd be $10, it's worth $25 because people are going to spend $50 to buy a Jesus fish. Hey, quick question for everybody here. What's better than a regular fish? Anybody? A Jesus fish, right? You get this. You get this. Can you imagine the take we'd be able to have? Peter, like his father and his father and his father and his father, had been working for a day like this. They had been working for a catch like this. This was amazing. And Peter and James and Andrew and John, they got it. It is in their boat. They get to paddle up to the shore, and their boat is this far above the water line, right? There's an extra guy just like pitching water out of it because they're this far above the water line as the waves are lapping against it. And they're rowing. Can you imagine how cool it is? They just made bank. They're not going to be millionaires off this catch. But, I mean, how many of you would be happy to be thousandaires? If your hand was not up, we'll pass the plate past you a few extra times today. Because if thousandaires does not sound interesting, you need to have a little extra more partnership with God. I mean, how cool would that be? But when Jesus says, follow me, Peter and Andrew and James and John, when Jesus says, follow me, pick a verb. What do? They follow. They don't take fish in their pockets. They don't try to walk the path of fishpreneur and Jesus follower. Now, would it have been fine to take those fish to market? Yes. Would it have been great to take those fish to market? Yes. Would it have been cool to be the person with the wheelbarrows and the wagons saying, hey, everybody, I made an exclusive deal with Jacobeus. He alone is going to be selling Jesus fish today. So if you want a regular fish, go to one of the other markets. But if you want a Jesus fish, Jacobeus and Sons, he'll set you up. Wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it have been good? Yes. But Jesus calls them away from it. Jesus calls them away from that because he wanted to do something amazing through them. As Christians, there are so many fine lines. There are so many fine lines. There are a lot of things that are good. There are a lot of things that are nice. There are a lot of things that are fun. There are a lot of things that are acceptable. There are a lot of things that are okay. There are a lot of things that you can get away with. There are a lot of things that you can be comfortable with. There's a lot of things that it's no big deal. But if it's not with Jesus, wouldn't it be ridiculous to hold on to fish? I mean, wouldn't it be ridiculous to hold on to fish when Jesus is calling? Now, I enjoy fish. How many people here enjoy fish or seafood, freshwater, saltwater? Yeah, we like it, right? Fish are great. Fish are delicious. God made fish yummy. But more than a cold, slimy fish in my hand, I'd rather be closer to God. Now, as Christians, we are very good at negotiating. I am the king of negotiators. Well, I'm not the king, but, I might be in the cabinet because we rationalize so many things. Is there something that you are rationalizing? Is there something that's fine, that's okay, that's done it before, that's familiar? Is there something that is good, but not Jesus? Jesus is calling you. That's why Luke wrote this down. That's why God had Luke write this down. Because he's calling to each of us and calling individually us and telling us, walk with me. Do life with me. Be with me. Be where I go. Do what I do. Hear what I say so you can speak what I want to speak through you. There's so many things that we're okay with, right? I mean, you could cheer for the Chiefs and the Eagles, right? I mean, you could cheer for both. You could wear like a Chiefs uniform jersey on this side and an Eagles jersey on this side, or maybe Chief pants and Eagles shirt, or vice versa. I mean, that would make sense, right? Like holding Jesus' hand and a fish at the same time. What's God tapping your heart about? Is it some habit on the internet that you continue to dabble with? Is it some of the shows that you know you should not watch? Is it the way you treat people, the jokes you tell, how you love to share the secrets and information about other people, how you love to not take care of your body, how you love or are at least familiar with feeling bad about yourself, telling lies about a child of God, that you're worthless, that you're broken, that you're rejected? Is it just not being involved? I don't know your heart, but I do know God does. So God is tapping us. Walk with me. And you know that path. Oh, that path with Jesus. It is an amazing path. It is a path we hear about at every funeral and every baptism. It is a one that we hear in every hospital room and at every wedding. That God chooses to do life with us and to walk with us through the valley of the shadow of death and the peaks of ecstatic joy. The one who went to the cross to come back from the grave to leave our grave empty. As great as it would be to have a ton of fish, isn't it better to have Jesus? So if it's one or the other, maybe it's time to throw the fish down and hold on closer to Jesus. Isn't that better? When Jesus says, come and follow me, God bless you. When Jesus says, come and follow me, what he's really saying is, let's hang out. Let's go somewhere better. Fish or Jesus? When you're unpacking your choices and looking at old habits and figuring out the resolution inside your heart, whatever the conflict is, that's the question. And if you're writing a sermon report for confirmation, that would be the main idea. Fish or Jesus? You know what you really want. At the end of every one of our conversations, we give each other a little bit of space to have our own conversation with God. This is that moment. This is that time. This is your moment with God.